Having a written legal will is important, but more than half of Aussie adults don't have one. Vision has entered into a partnership with SafeWill, a leading online will writing platform, to provide you with an easier and more affordable way to write or update your will. As part of the Vision family, we want you to know about a way that you can write your will for free. Start the process now and complete it at no cost during Leave a Legacy Week from February 26th to March 3rd. See all the details at vision.org.au/legacy. A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
It's Australia Day, and we've been looking at the Christian influence on the establishment and ongoing progress of the new colony in New South Wales. But now we're going to take a more sobering look at some of the darkest moments in our history, but also the Christian response to this darkness. So right now, as we explore Australia's Christian heritage, we do so at a time when revisionists have been working to erase our Christian history. Our early history includes the Christian response to the often volatile conflicts between the white settlers and the Aboriginal people. Historian Dr. John Harris, who wrote the book One Blood, researching the early atrocities, says a balancing story of Christian reaction during this time is disappearing.
The truth is still not being told about Aboriginal people, because what's not being told are the positive aspects of the role of the missions, because Christianity and the churches are being written out of the national curriculum. I know some people who are trying to do something about it, but it's very difficult to convince politicians that there should be more attention to Christianity and to churches in a national curriculum. And so the story of the courage and compassion of Christians, which balances in some way the criticisms of Christians, that story is not being told.
And some will ask the questions, do we even have a dark or hidden history in Australia? And was the church truly a friend of the Aboriginal people? The truth emerges. The stories are sobering, and mass killings were a shameful threat to the reputation of the new colony.
The killing of Aboriginal people in large numbers did not happen until pastoral industries started to extend to the north and west. I'll just give you some exact quotes from anthropologists Spencer and Gillen, who did a lot of work in Central Australia. Quote, "It is best to draw the veil over the past history of the relationship between the blackfellow and the white man." Stokes wrote in 1846, "We regret that the facts of Australia's colonisation must reach the eyes of posterity." Dr. Ferrara in 1903 worried that, quote, "Details of frontier violence in the northwest, if they get to the public ear, might affect West Australia's reputation abroad." Knight in 1895 refused to elaborate on the terrible Kilcoy poisoning in Queensland, where I might say hundreds of Aboriginal people were killed by putting arsenic in food. He said, "This should not be made public because it will harm the honour of the white race."
And it wasn't only mass killings, but aggression, disease and sexual abuse that threatened the very existence of Aboriginal communities.
Remember one thing that cannot be argued about, which almost tells the whole story in 3 or 4 words. It is this: that in the Lake Macquarie district, where missionary Lancelot Threlkeld was, he spoke of thousands of Aboriginal people, and he wrote, "Thousands have been reduced to hundreds, hundreds have been reduced to tens." And he spoke about physical aggression, sexual abuse, and European diseases. But we have a statistic, an official statistic. The census from Lake Macquarie district in 1837, and remember that 20 years earlier, Threlkeld had said there were thousands of people. The return from Lake Macquarie, that's present-day Newcastle, was this: 28 men, 2 women, 2 boys, no girls.
And some may ask, where were the Christians? Well, as reports of atrocities against Aboriginal people began to emerge, Christian pulpits were strongly advocating for the welfare of Aboriginal people.
In early Australia, it's pretty hard to talk about the church when you've only got kind of a handful of clergy and so on. But what we have to say about those early Christian clergy is that while they might have all been tarred by the brush of, European superiority, we've got a better culture, than Aboriginal people, etc., we've got to change them to be like us. These clergy were appalled at the killing of Aboriginal people because they knew that Aboriginal people were human beings and therefore were created in the image of God. And in every denomination, of which there was a church and a clergyman in Sydney in the early years of the early 1800s, in every church, this was forcefully spoken about from the pulpit and written about.
An example of this is in 1938, just before the famous second trial of 7 white men charged with the killing of 28 Aboriginal people at Mile Creek Station, which is in the New England district in New South Wales. A Baptist pastor, John Saunders, addressed his congregation.
And his text was Isaiah 26, verse 21. For behold, the Lord cometh out of his place. He will punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. The earth shall also disclose her blood, and shall no more cover her slain. And that's a very powerful verse to have chosen to talk about the Mile Creek massacres. The Saviour died as much for the Aboriginal people as he did for you.
In 1908, in the Northern Territory, the Anglican Church Missionary Society became aware that Aboriginal people were being shot by the hunting gangs of Eastern and African Pastoral Company. The church played a vital role providing sanctuary for Aboriginal people on the Roper River. Dr. John Harris describes eyewitness accounts.
Over 200 Aboriginal people fled there from about 6 different tribe or language groups. And from those 200 people have come all the Aboriginal people of that part of the Northern Territory now. And they went there. I've spoken to some of them when they were still alive in the 1960s, Barnabas Roberts, who spoke of the killing of his father, the killing of his mother, the shooting of his grandmother. And he said, if the missionaries hadn't come, my people would be all gone. Mm. That's an Aboriginal person who saw it with his own eyes.
Atrocities inflicted upon Aboriginal people are well documented. The story of courage and compassion of Christians, which balances the criticisms of Christians, needs to be told. And as Dr. John Harris reflects on the mobilising of the church and the formation of missions, he reflects that while the church was able to do good things, it was never enough.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.